came into the organization, and we put forth a path. We were going to take a blockchain and implement it onto our Internet of Things message bus. What we found out over a short time period is that we couldn't do that. And it wasn't because it couldn't be done. It was just because the underlying technology and blockchains wasn't going to be able to make it happen. So we had to look at how do we decentralize and how can we put together a system and what's the purpose behind it. So let me see if I'm going the right way here. So we live by this. This is our mantra. Albert Einstein, pretty smart guy, says we cannot solve problems using the same thinking we used when we created them. And that is something that we had to look at really hard within the blockchain when we started to do our research on this. This is in, I'd say, August of 2018, that we had raised $1 million and were asked by the largest fund, what are you going to do about scale? And we found out the common denominator in all blockchains, not the Bitcoin and Litecoin and the forks of Bitcoin, but within all the smart contract platforms, a common denominator was smart contracts. So we had to figure out, is there a way to implement or to redesign the current implementations or focus that the blockchain community had? Is it me or is it, there we go. So first thing we had to do was reimagine. We had to reimagine what a world could look like if we were able to actually put something together. We had to reimagine how we could go ahead and give a decentralized population, a decentralized world, the ability to manage monetary policy, the ability to manage the value or the stability of a token through dynamic algorithms. And one of the things that we really focus on is the value of money. A lot of central banks now have us convinced that the value of money or the value of an economy is a reflection of the money, and that's not what it is. It's actually the value of money is a reflection of the economy. And we have to understand the GDP, the productivity of a nation, the natural resources of a nation are what put value within that economy or that nation, not the dollar or the value of the dollar pegged against another dollar or another asset. So we really had to go in and reimagine, what could this be? How could we do this? If we were able to put something together, what can it do for the world and the population? The next thing we had to do was rethink. And when we were rethinking things, we had to rethink not, oh, can I get another speculative asset out there? Can I put something out there that's going to see volatile movements continually, makes people very rich, make people very poor? And instead, can we create a monetary policy or a stabilized coin that is stabilized not to any external basket of assets, but instead to the actual economy of the internal blockchain, just like a nation does, just like the fiat currencies of today are doing, without the inflation that goes along with them. There is a reason for inflation. Inflation is built into money so that you'll actually spend the money. So you'll spend it on assets. So you'll put it into things that do have store of value. But is there a way to create it so that we can have a money supply that is always just below the rate of transaction volume of that economy? That way there's always a slight demand for the money, but it's also going to instill trust, because we don't believe that there's going to be consumer adoption within blockchain or within crypto unless it can be trusted that if I sell services or products today and accept this currency, If tomorrow I go to procure services, will it hold the same value? One of the problems that we see with the deflationary economies is exactly around that. They have too much volatility. You cannot be assured that if I take Bitcoin today for something, it's not going to drop by 5, 10, 15, and we've seen this over the past few months again, percent. So how can we instill that value into the coin and instill that trust in? Another thing that we had to realize is that in 99, nobody went to the banks, UBS or HSBC or Bank of America or Wells Fargo or anybody, and said, I really want to do all of my banking from my phone. It came from the enterprises introducing out to the consumer. The consumer trusts those brands. Whether they like the bank or not, they still trust the bank. They have their money in there. And that's really where we see consumer adoption coming. So we have to rethink, what is the approach in order to come at this? How do we actually get 7 billion people or 8 billion, whatever the number is now in the world, and all enterprises to start to utilize a method of exchange that is going to allow us to have a true currency that does do what we want it to do, stabilizes and goes. We brought on a couple of economists this year, and one of them has been doing, has created or designed currencies for governments over the past 4 decades. He got his degree at UCLA in '82, his PhD. And he said, any day, give me a currency with 0 inflation over something with 7% or 8% inflation, because I know that I'm going to be able to have that value, and that if I accept that, I can exchange it for goods or services and know it's going to hold its value. So we didn't look at a speculative asset or how are we going to make this a 10,000x or something. What we're really looking at is how can we change trade? How can we change purchasing power? How can we bring all of the value of humankind wherever they live? And it could be the jungles of Indonesia, it can be the plains in Africa, it can be the frozen tundra up in Siberia. There's brilliance everywhere. The problem is not all have access to that. And how do we give that access? How do we create a better world, a better economy, and a better approach to this? So that's what we kind of had to rethink. And then the next thing we have to do is to reinvent. So that's where we came to. We looked at all of the platforms out there. We did our research. The last thing we wanted to do when we started this project is write a native blockchain. That is not our mission. Our mission was just take one and implement it in or integrate it into our message bus and create a world where people have all of the access and the authority over and control over their data, where it's not large companies that are making a revenue off of it. It's you're producing the data. It's your devices that you purchased. Why wouldn't it be you that chooses who can see that data and what revenue, if any, will come off of that? You should be selling it, not Facebook. So in all of this, it comes to the point of how do we get a better decentralized world? How do we put the control of everything within the hands of the people? How do we move past, and I'm sorry, but at some point, technology outpaces the value of things in here, and we've seen things go away. Central banks right now have this philosophy that modern monetary theory, MMT, is the way that everything should be. And what that basically means is governments can never have debt. So we can print as much money as we want, and we can have as much inflation. And we're fighting this right now in the United States. Our inflation is going up. They're saying our wages are going up, but when they're going up at a slower rate than inflation. Inflation is a true killer of an economy, and it's a true killer of value and wealth within a nation. So can we do method of exchange? Can we create a global currency managed by algorithms? Can we create individual accounts? Can we have accounts where every asset that you own is a subset of your account, and that you can actually transfer that and from one account over to another account, so that there's no intermediaries, so there's no middleman in there. Is there ways that this can be done? And that's really what we've been focusing on in this project. And it all comes down to the last, and that is the sovereignty of the individual. We believe in individual rights. We believe in sovereignty of the individual. We believe that you should have control over what it is that you are, how do you trade with others? What rules can you have? Now, we believe very much in regulation, and we've created a platform and an approach to it where it is regulated. That organizations, in fact, Hester Peirce, who's a commissioner at the SEC in the United States, we can publicly quote her as saying, she calls it a TSA pre-check of the regulatory use of blockchain. And that's because of the fact that we don't believe that that you have to tell people, and it's the anonymity here. People don't need to know who you are when you're transacting. They just have to know that you meet every necessary compliance in any given sovereign nation in order to trade there legally. And as long as there's a way to do that, then we believe that it will open up more of the world. And so we are doing a raise, and we can talk about that. I know that we have scheduled appointments up here and such. Pardon me, I flew in at 2 a.m. from Switzerland. We were just setting up the foundation up there, and I'm kind of jacked up on coffee right now in order to get up here and talk and be semi-coherent. Anyway, so what I'd like to do is, I am here, Jay Moore is here, my co-founder. I've got Stuart Worrell, I've got Jacob Holdmann, and I've got Corky Bizjack. If anybody would like to talk about the technology, if anybody would like to talk more about how we're approaching this and what we're doing and what purpose we are trying to fulfill here, we would love to have conversations. And with that, I will leave you all, and thank you.